Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this video. Today I'm going to teach you a couple new things that's going to help you in your everyday life as it relates to technology. And so let's get right into it. We're going to talk about understanding power and internet speeds, all right? So first we're going to talk about volts, amps, and watts, all right? What does that mean? I had no idea either, but we're going to find out right now, okay? So let's take a water gun, for example. This water gun that you see on the picture right here, or really any water gun, is going to have a very tiny hole that water is going to pass through, all right? So the water pressure is quite high because the hole that it's going through is very small, right? And so what that means as it relates to volts and amps is that the pressure of the water is the voltage, and how much water is passing through the hole is the ampere, is the amps, okay? So basically pressure is volts and volume is amps, okay? So let's use one more example. Let's take a gardening hose. A gardening hose has low pressure, right? And high volume going through it, which if this was an electrical system, it would tell us that this has a low voltage and high amplitude. All right? Very, very cool, Raf. Now, what the frick does this mean? And what does watts mean? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the next slide. Watts really is just volts times amps. That's it. Volts times amps, okay? So how does that apply to you? Well, basically, your phone, or at least my phone, I have an iPhone 12 mini, takes up to 20 watts to charge, okay? So most phone chargers will supply up to 20 watts, right? Which is why they're nice and small and discreet, which is great. But have you ever noticed when you plug a phone charger, let's say it's USB-C, into your laptop, it doesn't charge as fast? Well, obviously, it's because it's not able to supply the power, right? And it is because it cannot give it as much wattage as it needs, right? Because my laptop, for example, my MacBook takes about 70 watts, which my phone charger cannot supply, but it tries to, okay? So that's watts, ladies and gentlemen. Now you understand what volts are, amps are, and watts are, okay? Great. Now we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, the next thing I'll teach you is arguably even more important, okay? We're going to talk about bits and bytes. Kilobits versus kilobytes, okay? So I'll give you a little bit of a story, okay? So a week ago, I was playing my Xbox and I was downloading a game, okay? And, it tells you how quickly it's downloading it on the right side of my screen. And so I took a picture of it because I thought it was quite fast. 602 megabits per second. And I was like, oh my god, that is quickly. That must mean that, every 2 seconds I'm downloading more than a gigabyte of this game, right? Which is obviously super, super fast. But then I looked at the actual numbers of the download, how fast it was going, and it was nowhere near like that. So what I found out, ladies and gentlemen, is that 8 bits is equal to 1 byte, okay? So let's say it was downloading at 650 megabits per second. It actually means that you have to divide that by 8 to get the actual MB per second, okay? Or megabytes per second, which is the metric that we all know and love, right? 1,000 megabytes is a gigabyte and all that stuff, right? So basically, I was downloading at around 81 megabytes per second, which is still pretty quick, but, it's nowhere near as fast as, what most people, including me until a week ago, would think, right? So, for example, take this ad, this ad about internet from Optimum.com, okay? So they advertise, 500 MBs fiber internet. That really just means that you have to slash it by 8, and then you get about 62.5 megabytes per second, which is still pretty fast, but it's, it's deceiving, ladies and gentlemen. Some people think that, there's a discrepancy between those two numbers because of your hard drive or hard disk who can't handle it. That's not true. SSDs nowadays are very quick, all right? So final takeaways, watts equals volts plus amps, and you have to divide Mbps or megabits per second by 8 to get megabytes per second. And the source, ladies and gentlemen, is me. You can quote me, Raphael. Thanks for listening.